Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video. And in today's video, I'm going to be predicting the Whyte versus Tetteh fight. And so, if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like the video if you do indeed like the video, and let's get straight into it. So, going into this fight, Whyte is 30-3 with 20 KOs, and Tetteh is 23-1 with 20 KOs. This fight is a 10-round fight in the heavyweight division. Whyte's last fight was a win via stoppage in round 3 versus Hammer, and Tetteh's last fight was a win via TKO in round 5 versus Bonson. They are both 36. Whyte's losses have come versus Fury in 2022, Povetkin in 2020, and Joshua in 2015. Tetteh's loss came via TKO in round 1 versus Dubois in 2019. And to speak a bit more about what I've just been saying, like I say, this is 10-round contest. They have similar, attributes to an extent, same amount of knockouts, same age, both Whyte and Tetteh. It's an interesting fight, this one in general, as to why it's even happening. I mean, Whyte is out in Gibraltar fighting, and, last time out he fought Christian Hammer in Ireland on a very small show, and perhaps people were thinking this is a comeback fight. This was, I believe, after 2 years of being out through, I don't know if it was a ban or if they were trying to get him through kind of the drug testing boards and bodies and through all the legal cases and like what Conor Ben's had to go through the past couple of years. I'm not too sure, but nonetheless, like I say, last time out he fought in a very small hall show in Ireland versus Hammer, and Hammer seemingly quit after a couple of rounds just because he couldn't be bothered, and he's way past any of his goodish fights in which he ever had. But now he's fighting in Gibraltar. It's interesting to see that this is even happening. I mean, it's good for the eyes of Gibraltar, getting more fans there and things like that. Whyte is a big fan. He's a big draw, and so perhaps people might go to watch him and see what it's about out in Gibraltar. So that could happen. So it could be a case of the money situation. He's getting paid well to fight out there, so why not? And it's a low risk, high reward if the money's good out there. And in general, you see a lot of countries trying to bring big sporting events to their to their country because they want to drive that tourism and bring more eyes to the attraction and to the country. And so perhaps that could be the case. Perhaps it could be the case of it's the only sanctioning body that will accept him, and perhaps he's not able to fight in the UK. There has been very little talk about what's actually happened with the drug test, if he's got fully cleared, and there hasn't been much detail given to it compared to how much detail the likes of a Conor Ben's had. Dillian Whyte has seemingly tested positive a couple of times and never really been, given the all clear like fully, where you've been able to read the documents and see how clear it is. But perhaps he's only. I don't even know if he is able to actually get a UK sanctioned license anymore. Like I say, I'm not too sure what's happened. I don't know if he can even fight in America to get that kind of license. Like I say, it's weird with what's happening, and like I say, he's on a bit of an interesting run at the moment, and he's going against names in which have been around and have fought around the top of the heavyweight division and have got arguably good records. I mean, Tetteh has got a good record, bar of course the Dubois loss, but when you read into it more, Tetteh has hardly ever fought outside of Africa, outside of Ghana really, and the one time he did, he fought Dubois and he got absolutely battered and he got stopped badly. And this was very, round one, it was an easy win for Dubois, and this was before Dubois was even kind of anywhere near the level in which he is now. This was years ago, this was 5 years ago, Daniel Dubois, and yeah, it was a comfortable performance and a comfortable win for him. And, now, has he improved much fighting the guys in which he's fighting? The little tape in which you can see of him fighting the guys in which he has been fighting, it looks, he's winning, but the opponents look very poor. It looks like a very interesting setup. I mean, the rings are tiny. That's something in which he's had to deal with, and he seems to be able to do well there because he's got a long jab. He's quite a rangy, big, tall type fighter, and he was seemingly made for them kind of conditions with it being a small ring. Some of the conditions look very strange. The ring's outside and it's all wet, and it's strange, but that is the setup out in Africa with some of the boxing fights. And in general, perhaps if Tetteh is to, win versus Dillian Whyte here, then he is helping put African heavyweight boxing on the map, and perhaps in general he's doing that just through this fight. And when you see Bakole going and doing what he's doing and beating a name in Jared Anderson and being talked about having some big fights as world title eliminators, he's really pushing things on for African boxing. And I think there is a lot of talent out there, and it's undiscovered talent, and it's great to see that Bacoli is being that headline kind of front runner. And Tetteh, like I say, if he's able to win this one, then could perhaps go on to do that, and perhaps as seeing Bacoli and taking motivation from him, and becoming more driven to do that because of that. But Dillian Whyte is going to be a tough test for him. Obviously, he's on this interesting run. He has that kind of more pure heavyweight style, a style in which perhaps you don't see quite as much anymore. You see a few more kind of boxers in the heavyweight division trying to be that more technical type of boxer coming up. Perhaps like a Fabio Wardley isn't really that, and he's still kind of that more old school type heavyweight style. But Whyte is as old school as it comes, really. He's going to just stand in front of you, bang away at the body, and really kind of rip shots in and be explosive at times. That's what he has perhaps better than certain heavyweights. But yeah, he's going to be aggressive and really just kind of foot in shots, and it's going to be an entertaining thing to see. And in general, he's also on the older side, both of these are. But at the same time, when you look at the heavyweight kind of scene and you look at the average age for a heavyweight that's doing good things, they all are, a bit more on the older side. I mean, Usyk, Fury, AJ, that's an era there. They are on the older side, and Usyk still fighting at such a high level. Dubois perhaps isn't, quite as old, and he's still, achieved a lot in what he's in the age in which he has. But I think the average age of a heavyweight and the average prime of a heavyweight could be perhaps later than that of any other kind of division, just because of their body, maturing differently, power being such a big aspect. And you can even look at, when you look at George Foreman and what he did and what he achieved, he was, so much older and still managed to have success. And so I think that's been a thing in general throughout history, where heavyweight fighters can be older and can still have success. So Dillian Whyte, this is like a second or third attempt to come back and be able to rebuild. If he wins this one, he could definitely be put back into a big fight against a big name. I still think his face, and he's able to go around into the heavyweight division and have success, and to be able to get some big fights still. I'm sure His Excellency would take him on and accept him and bring him in. I mean, they've accepted Jarrell Miller after all that's happened with his drugs testing and everything, and that was seemingly a lot worse than the Dillian Whyte situation. So he definitely, like I say, could go on to big things after this if he wants to. I'm not too sure though if he's still with any sort of promoter or not. I mean, there was things with him and Eddie Hearn at one point, but I don't actually know if Eddie Hearn ever actually signed him. He was obviously meant to fight Joshua on there, but then also his highlights were on Sky versus the Hammer fight, which I found surprising because I just didn't really expect it. Perhaps that's just because they know that the viewership is there and White's going to probably bring in, like I say, some views. Not too sure, but perhaps he's got some sort of signing with some sort of promoter or some sort of broadcaster or something, where all of his fights are going to be shown somewhere somehow, or at least the highlights are. Of course, he's also fought all of the top names. That's why Dillian Whyte is such a great name to have around boxing. He has fought all of the top names. Not maybe quite as much as that of a Chisora, but a lot of top names. I mean, you look at AJ, of course, the first time he lost Fury, he lost, and sold out a huge kind of venue with that. And then Chisora, he's fought him twice, I believe, already. He wants to fight him again. Povetkin fought him twice, got knocked out badly, and then came back to win and stop Povetkin well. Parker, he won by unanimous decision in that one. That one's aged well. Franklin, that's a name in which I think is an underrated name. I think it's a name in which he has improved since the losses versus Joshua and versus Whyte, and he was the first person to fight uh, Franklin. Whyte was, when he was unbeaten and still not, that was his chance to make a big name for himself, and Whyte was able to win that one as well. And so he has definitely fought everybody. Like I say, that's why that brings a lot of entertainment to himself. And in general, it's going to be interesting to see if he's able to come again and to get through everything. Of course, he has to get through Tetteh first, and to speak about them both individually as fighters. Whyte, he's going to put his all into his shots. That's something in which he's shown on multiple occasions through the huge knockouts in which he's managed to achieve. When you think back upon some of his big knockouts, you think about that Chisora one mainly, how big and brutal of a knockout that was, and how many times he's been able to, jump into them hooks and be able to be explosive and just have that power and consistently land on the temple and be able to knock guys out from doing that. It's not something in which perhaps I would recommend to everybody, because when you're jumping in, you can be caught with shots and it'll be easier for you to be grounded, because you're kind of off the ground when you're doing it. But the amount of power that he generates with it, like I say, putting his full all into his shots, and in general, he does that with pretty much every one of his shots. He's going to put his all into his shots. Even when he's going to the body, he's clubbing to the body, and it looks hard. It looks like it is going to be painful no matter what. And I think he has put on more weight now. I think he is a bigger guy, and he's probably going to have more power with his shots. And perhaps that's a scary thought if he is able to land clean on that temple like he typically is. He's aggressive and is a front foot type fighter who is going to be able to control the ring well. And I think it's going to be difficult for Tetteh to be able to kind of gain any sort of leeway in the way of controlling the ring, getting the centre of the ring, or anything like that. I think Whyte can fight on the back foot, but I just don't think the version of him in which we're seeing now, this big, even bigger kind of lump of a heavyweight, is going to take any sort of a backward step. Like I say, he's powerful. He puts his shots together relatively nicely. He is, like I say, continuously throwing with flurries of shots. He's imposing. He pushes you back, and in general, like I say, is imposing with his size. Like I mentioned, he can set up his shots relatively nicely. Isn't got too bad of a jab. I think I would like to see perhaps sometimes he uses his mid-range shots a bit better, and set shots up a bit better with them. He has that kind of Philly shell as well, so he will sometimes catch shots at the same time and then be able to respond. But it's nothing too crazy. He controls the center, like I say. He's an in-close type fighter. He has nice short shots. He's able to generate power from the short shots in which he's thrown as well. He walks you down. He's a great finisher of fights, and that's full credit to him to be able to do that, to be able to go in, hurt his opponent, and if they aren't out, then he's going to be able to finish it relatively well. And like I say, he lands on the temple typically consistently. Negatives about him, of course, he's been hurt. He's been stopped badly multiple times. I mean, you think about the Povetkin fight, that first fight, he got stopped badly. Even the Joshua one, he got stopped quite badly. The Fury one wasn't too bad, but he still, got dropped, got stopped, and I'm not too sure, where his head's at even coming into this fight. And I think over the time and the wars in which he has had and the shots in which he's had, any heavyweight would be affected by that, and I think he probably has been. His momentum, of course, can get flipped as well. Again, when you think about that Povetkin fight, the momentum was flipped just like that because perhaps he, was just a bit too comfortable. He takes a lot of shots and is just willing to, at this point in his career, he will try and catch a few, but I think he is just going to be willing to just take any sort of shots to respond with hopefully the more powerful ones himself. He is a big target. His speed, I think his speed is gone a bit now. I think that explosive jumpness into his shots, the speed has gone behind it a bit now. Perhaps he's overconfident and just overlooking Tetteh. It wouldn't surprise me if he is, to be completely honest. He is there to be countered. I think it's going to be interesting to see how good his conditioning is. If it does go to full 10-round distance, he is going to be throwing quite a lot of shots if you let him, and so perhaps he might tire. Like I said, I don't know how good his actual conditioning is at the moment. I think he struggles against movers. Tetteh can move on the back foot. I don't think it's anything crazy, but perhaps he might be able to make it difficult a little bit. He's not I think he's perhaps losing a bit of urgency, Dillian Whyte, and he's just going to be a bit more plodding around the ring now. He takes to give shots, and he does stand quite tall, but so does Tetteh as well. So it's going to be two kind of big, heavy, sizable lumps just going at it, to be honest, which is going to be entertaining nonetheless. However it ends, Tetteh is a fighter. He's got a very high guard. When you think about or look back upon that fight versus Dubois, he was so open to the body. His guard was his elbows were near his ears. It was so high, and it's not, I suppose, not bad to be able to catch certain shots. I think he was just a bit scared, to be honest, of what was going to come, and I think he just looked completely lost. He lost his belief straight away, and that's why another reason in which why he got damaged. And if he comes in with that same mentality, obviously he's older now, so things may have changed. He may have gotten a little bit more confident in himself, but if he comes in with that, I'm not too sure if that's going to go in well. But he has that very high guard. I think Whyte could definitely chop him down to the body if he wanted to, if he sees him doing that. He wants to be behind his jab, and he has got a good jab. Tetteh is consistent with his jab and is going to be always throwing it out. So perhaps with the lack of urgency in which Whyte has, he might be able to have a little bit of success behind the jab, especially if it goes into the later rounds. He does change levels relatively nice. He goes for feints a bit now. I don't know if Whyte's really going to react to that. He tries to parry shots, and I don't know if he's going to be able to parry shots off Whyte. He makes opponents struggle to find range because of how long his jab is, because he is consistently hitting it out. Opponents will struggle to land on him. His hand speed, I think, is better than that of Dillian Whyte. He's more accurate and more controlled, and he is a big frame as well, so he is if he is able to impose himself, he could definitely have more success, but I just don't think he is too willing to impose himself. And negatives about him, his head's on the line. When he was against Dubois, he was continuously getting caught with the jab from the very get-go, and he wasn't able to get past him, and not able to get past his jab. Dubois is a big guy. He has got that rangy kind of reach, and Whyte hasn't got that. So, like I say, he could have success with the jab in this fight. He has been hurt, obviously, against Dubois. He got hurt quite badly, and it wasn't, I suppose, awful. He wanted to continue. He kind of shoved the ref a little bit because he didn't let him continue. But I definitely think he could have been hurt much worse. And it was very early on the fight to be taking shots like that and being, reacting the way he was, getting dropped the way he was. He stands tall. He's a slow pace, and that's probably going to go into Whyte's favour as well. He seems uncomfortable whenever he is taking any sort of shots. I think he doesn't really deal with a high output very well as well. And Whyte, if he is going to be able to get you in the corner, which Tetteh I believe is going to accept being on the back foot, Whyte's just gonna tee off on shots. He, like I say, I think he loses belief. He headhunts at times. He does change levels sometimes nicely with the jab, but other than that, sometimes he does headhunt and he doesn't really throw many big shots. To be honest, he has a low output. He stands straight in front of you. His shot variety is very, very limited. Like I say, he hardly ever really works anything past the jab from what I've seen, and even some of the knockouts in which I've seen or stoppages, I'm not even too sure why the ref stopped it. The other opponent doesn't look too bad at all. Corners are pulled out for no reason and things like that. It's just been weird, and it's not really him often getting huge knockouts. He has, but he's not consistent with that realistically because, like I said, I don't really think he's landing that bigger shots. I think if he did, then he definitely could hurt, but I'm just not too sure if he will. Whyte is the favourite for this fight, and I think that Whyte will win via KO in round 2. I think it's going to be a very, very easy display where he's going to be able to break him down, go to the body, and then just knock him out. He definitely could do it whenever he wants, to be completely honest. I think Tetteh is poor. I think he's not going to be able to react to the power. I think Whyte's just going to walk straight for his jab and then just be able to bully him and put him on the back foot and then get him out of there as easy as he wants. And it's a fight like that which is really not going to test him, really not do too much for his career, and just be a comfortable winning performance. And so, if that's what he's wanting, if that's what he's after to, get some sort of a rebuild going, then fair enough. But like I said, I think he's going to be able to comfortably win via TKO in round 2. Then we could go on to fight next. You look at names like a Zhang, a Bicoli, a Caballero, Wardley, perhaps if Wardley is able to step into this kind of level of things now. I'm not too sure if he's quite yet, but perhaps they're all great options. They could be fights to be made, and I would love to see any of them. To be honest, he's not going to go into fight a Fury after this, the winner of like a Fury versus Usyk. That's definitely not going to happen. It wouldn't surprise me if he goes and has another fight out in the middle of nowhere and, just carries on fighting guys in which people have kind of vaguely heard of and making money out of there. Like I say, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's doing that. I mean, he's getting easy money, to be honest, from doing that, in my opinion. He could fight a winner of Chisora versus Wallin. Like I say, seemingly been calling him out Chisora a lot, and if Chisora is able to win for this final fight in which Chisora has next, perhaps that could be the fight to be made. That would be a big fight, and perhaps one of the best actual caliber of opponent in which Chisora could fight next, because I don't really think there's too many big names in which are willing to fight Chisora. Perhaps a Jarrell Miller versus a Whyte. I think that'd be a great matchup, to be honest. I think they are both, big heavy lumps, and that could go at it. I think I would have preferred to see Chisora versus Miller instead of Wallin, but if Chisora versus Miller isn't happening, Whyte versus Miller would be a great fight as well, and a tough test for both. So that could definitely happen. Or Joshua again, of course. There's been talks about that. If Fury versus Usyk happens, it's a close fight. They may make a trilogy. If Fury wins and it's a close decision, they may make the trilogy. If Fury wins in general, they may make the trilogy. There's various different ways in which you can look at it and think they may make the trilogy. So perhaps Joshua may be waiting around for a while now. He's not going to be taking up Dubois' offer. Dubois is probably going to fight Parker in on February 22nd, and then after that, he's going to get his IBF mandatory called. So Frank Warren has said that it's unlikely that we're going to see Joshua versus Dubois the rematch anytime soon. And to be honest, nobody's really calling for that. Nobody really cares for that. Nobody's really wanting that, to be honest, because Joshua did get beaten badly. But of course, the Whyte versus Joshua fight was going to happen, of course, before everything kind of kicked off with all the drug scandals and everything like that, and that was a bad time for Matchroom. But in general, that could happen again. You never know if Joshua is just sat waiting around and is injury free and is willing to get back in the ring. That could be a big fight to make, and if, like I said, the Fury one is not on the table, or is being put on hold for even more months, and that could happen. But yeah, that is it for today's video. I hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did, need like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.